Hello, welcome to Tips for Taking Notes in Class. This is a workshop sponsored by Whitaker Library. Before we begin, let's take a note-taking self-evaluation where I'm going to ask you a series of questions and you answer that you do it sometimes, always, never. Do you take notes in all your classes, including online classes? Do you go to class with enough time to prepare your notes? Do you review your notes as soon as possible after the class is over? Can you easily find your notes for study? Do you have a system for taking notes? When listening to the teacher, do you think of questions? Do you read assignments before class? Do you write down comments made by your classmates? How did you do on the self-evaluation? If you answered always to all these questions, you have a really good start on being a good note taker. Taking notes is one of the most important skills you can learn as a college student. It helps you to improve your memory and retention, pay attention to the speaker, understand the information you are hearing. The reason for that is when you write information down that you're hearing, it requires your brain to process the information. This is why it's really important that you take notes in all your classes, including online classes that have lectures that have been recorded that you listen to. When you write down the information, you're processing it. You can also, if you have really good notes, review them for tests and quizzes to help you study. Tip 1 is to read assignments and take notes before class. This is very important. It can help you do a lot of things. First of all, if you're taking notes on your reading assignments before class, not only does it help you remember what you read, but you can use it to create a listening guide when you're in classroom so you can write down stuff as you're listening. It will also help you learn new vocabulary and concepts before the class begins, so that way you'll have a deeper understanding of what the teacher is saying. You can also prepare questions for in-class discussion, in addition to writing down questions about things you don't understand so that the teacher will clarify it while they're talking. Tip 2, be an active listener. Remember that listening starts at the beginning of class, so make sure you're prepared by getting to class with enough time to get your notes out and get them ready for when the teacher starts talking. Focus on the person speaking and ignore the distractions. A tip for doing that is to sit in front of the classroom. There'll be less distractions that way. Mentally engage with the speaker by thinking about what you hear as you listen. For example, think of questions as you're listening. Link what the person is saying to information you already know. This is extremely important because if you can link what the person is saying to information you already know, it will help you to remember it better. Also, pay attention to body language and the tone of voice. Teachers tend to change their tone and body language depending on the information they're talking about. Tip 3 is to use a system to organize your notes. This is important because you need to find your notes after you've written them so you can use them to study for your exams and quizzes and to learn the material. If you're writing your notes, it's suggested that you either have a 3-ring binder for each of your classes or spiral notebooks. Personally, I think this 3-ring binder is better because it allows you to add notes after you've already written them and shuffle things around if you need to. You also want to make sure that you write down on the top of the page you're taking the notes, the class, the date you're taking them, the subject covered, which you can get from your syllabus because your teachers will usually put on the syllabus what topics they're going over in class that day, and the page number. Because if you lose your notes, you want to make sure you can put them in order again. If you're typing your notes, it's very important that you have a system to save them so you can find them again. It's really easy to lose stuff on the computer if you don't know where things are saved. So, for example, here I've created a folder in my documents called 2020 Fall Semester. In that folder, I have a folder for every class I'm taking. Inside the class, I have a folder for class notes as well as a folder for the different papers and assignments. In the folder for class notes, I wrote down the date the notes were taken as well as the chapter that the material's on to make it easy for me to retrieve the information I need. Tip 4 is to develop a system to write notes. There are several systems out there that you can use to write notes. One popular system is called the Cornell note-taking system. In it, you divide your paper into two columns, with the left-hand column being approximately 2.5 inches long, and that's the recall column. The larger column to the right is where you take your notes when you're listening in class. And at the bottom of the page, you leave that area blank so you can write a summary of what the notes are talking about. The recall column and the summary should both be completed after the class is over. In the recall column, what you do is you write things next to your notes to help you remember what's being talked about in the notes. Another system is to use an outline, where you have the main idea, a subtopic, as well as examples and details of the topic. A third system is a graphic organizer. Some people prefer visualization, and that can be really helpful if you like visualization. This is just one example of graphic organizers, but there's many different ways you can make them. Whichever system of note style you use, make sure you're consistent. Also, if you want, you can mix it up. You could do an outline while you're in class, and then after class is over, use a graphic organizer to summarize your notes. The main thing you want to keep in mind is when you look at my designs, you see that they all have a main idea with subtopics. You're not writing verbatim what the teacher says word for word. What you're trying to do as an active listener is figure out what are the main ideas and what are the subtopics for each idea, and provide the support for the main ideas. Tip number 5, identify vocabulary words. When you are writing, mark down words you don't understand so you can look them up later. This is really important because when you're taking notes, you have to be really quick about it, which means you won't always have a chance to look up words that you don't understand. If possible, ask the teacher to define the words so you can write down a definition. If not, then come up with a system to highlight words. As a matter of fact, even if you do ask your teacher to write down words and you look them up, it's a good suggestion to always have your words that are new to you highlighted in some way. A couple suggestions are having some highlighters that you can highlight with. If you don't have a highlighter, you can underline the word twice, or you can circle it. Another good suggestion is to have a couple of colored pencils that you bring with you, so that way you can underline or circle the words in a different color to draw your attention to it. After class is over, look up words you don't understand. Here are two trustworthy dictionaries that you can use to look up words. Merriam-Webster and the American Heritage Dictionary are both great sources to look up words, and they're both available freely online. Tip number 6, use shorthand so you can write faster. It is important for you to spend more time listening than you do writing. One source suggests that you listen 80% of the time and write 20% of the time. In order to spend less time writing, use shorthand. Some examples of shorthand are below. E.G means for example. The equal sign. Using graphics such as arrows to show some sort of correlation. Listen leads to write, leads to review. Also, use texting as shorthand. Whenever you have acronyms, you want to make sure that the very first time you write them out, you say exactly what the acronym means and put the acronym in parentheses. After that, feel free to use the acronym every time you write. The reason for that is you want at some point on your page to mark out what the acronym means in case you're looking at it a week later and you can't remember what that acronym stands for. Tip number 7, include insightful comments from your classmates. Your classmates are smart and so are you. So it's important that if they have a really good comment that you write that down. It also helps you listen to the class discussion. Tip 8, write your notes for someone else. If you're writing your notes for someone else, you tend to be more careful about how you take your notes. It might be a good idea to have a study group that you commonly take notes and share them with. That way you can look at their notes and maybe you can catch something that you missed and add them to your own. Tip number 9, leave space in your notes to add information later. Tip number 9 is very closely related to tip number 10, which is review and revise your notes. It's important to leave the space so that way when you are revising your notes, you'll be able to add information. It is extremely important that you review your notes as quickly after class as possible. The reason for that is you will forget the information you learned in class really quickly. In the late 1800s, a guy named Ebbinghaus did an experiment about how people forget. What he discovered was that approximately 50% of the information that was learned was forgotten within an hour, and that approximately 67% or 2/3 was forgotten within a day. He also discovered that we're more likely to remember meaningful things, which is why it's equally important that we read the assignments before class, going back to tip number 1, because it will, with the prior knowledge, it'll help us to remember. Not only is it important to review and revise the notes while the memory is still fresh in your brain, because you'll be more likely to remember what the teacher said and to make appropriate corrections, but it's also important to continually study and review your notes, because the more often you study information, the more likely you are to remember it. If you have any questions, email library@chowan.edu. Thank you.